Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Science Connections show. In this show, we're going to talk about nature, curiosity, and hope. This show is about exploring nature through science to discover the wonderful world around us, from quarks to the galaxies and everything in between. Our guide will be our innate curiosity, asking critical questions that only lead to more questions, embarking on a journey of trial and error, failing many times more than succeeding in the hope of creating a better life for humanity in harmony with the universe. In each episode, we will meet a scientist who will share the science and laws she discovered. We will ask our guest scientist to tell us why she became a scientist and how her journey unfolded, sharing both the triumphs and the challenges she faced in her roller coaster journey of discovery. Lastly, we will learn how her scientific discoveries affect our everyday life, and without them, life would never be the same. In today's episode, which is talking about tinkering with nanotechnology, we will be speaking with Professor Jackie Yang. Jackie is the director of the Nano Bio Lab A-Star Research Institute in Singapore. Welcome, Jackie. We are so glad to have you on our show.
Thank you, Rana. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to speak about my work.
So we're going to start with asking you about what got you into science in the first place. What fostered that curiosity? What happened as a child growing up?
When I was in secondary school, we have chemistry lab, and I really enjoyed doing all the experiments because the reaction lead to very exciting and unexpected results. And in particular, I remember the word that my teacher used, effervescence, when there are basically gas and other things that generated. And then in high school, so my secondary school was in Singapore and my high school was in the US, in New York City. And my high school chemistry teacher, Mr. Williams, was a wonderful teacher. He really made the periodic table come to life for me. And there's so many interesting things about this periodic table, which, by the way, I really feel that is one of the great evidence of the creator. So there are many things we can do with chemistry. And when I go to university, I first major in electrical engineering, and then I decided to switch to chemical engineering because I love chemistry so much. And on the second day of school, my professor in chemistry, John Bove, basically recruited me to do research. And so from then on, I have been doing a lot of research.
So how could you tell us more about switching from one major to another? What happened? How did that happen? And how did people or your family reacted?
Oh, it is really one of those things, and I think young people should not be afraid to try it out because you think certain things about a major, but then when you really take the classes, you realize it's something else. So electrical engineering for me, it's I feel that it is not what I was looking for. Chemistry, on the other hand, I can work with it with my hands. I can smell it. I can touch it. I can see it. So there's so many exciting things with it. I remember my chemistry experiments involved giving us a tube of chemicals and asking us to use all kinds of different analytical methods to figure out what is the unknown chemical. Right? So this is one thing that really piqued my interest. And then the other thing was to learn to apply the science. And that's what research is about, to apply science in doing something, in making something that we want to develop. And that can make a huge difference. For example, I'm now doing a lot of research on using chemistry, and also actually it includes a lot of engineering, biology, as well as physics, to figure out how to develop new materials for nanomedicine that can present a better cure for various diseases, including cancer.
Wow. So two things that caught my attention from what you just said. One is that sometimes, yes, you started off with electrical engineering and then you ended up in chemistry, but that gave you an edge that added to your innovation and creativity coming from a different field into another field. So if you want to elaborate on that, like when people cross disciplines, what
Yeah.
happens?
When people cross disciplines, they really, to me, it's something that I do because I want to learn new knowledge. Right? In the past, people really are what we call polymath. They are able to be such learned scholars in different fields. Okay, and from the different fields, we learn knowledge. And science, as I mentioned, I really feel that it is a lot of knowledge that are waiting for us to discover. The scientific principles are basically what Allah used to create this universe of ours. So we want to understand these principles, and then we want to harness them and then try to do something good for society. So when you learn from one area of science to another, for example, many of you are in school learning about chemistry, physics, and biology. Obviously, these are different subjects, right? But they all can come together, they merge together, and then you can do cross-disciplinary work. So for example, I told you about nanomedicine. You have to start with an understanding of what difference you want to make. So, for example, we want to develop a delivery system for insulin that allows you to take it orally or by nasal passage instead of injecting insulin into our body after you realize your blood sugar level is too high with a biosensor. Right, so you can see it is a very different way of doing things, and our normal pancreas basically knows how to secrete the right amount of insulin, right? But when a person has an illness, is diabetic, for example, then that regulation is not working properly. So we take a lot of inspiration from Allah's creation, right? We want the delivery system to be able to sense when insulin is needed, which is when blood sugar level is high. Okay, and then it will release the insulin, and then we want it to stop releasing the insulin when the blood sugar level drop to the normal level. Okay, so this requires the development of a new material that is glucose sensitive, and we will encapsulate the insulin in there. So you can imagine, first is a biological question, is a medical problem, right? And then we make use of chemistry to make the material, and then there's physics involved on the mechanism of how this material can be released and can be done in a very effective manner so people can use it.
Wow, that's amazing how you connected all the different sciences together to help humanity. Because a lot of people think that, oh, if I'm going to study basic sciences, that's very dry and I'm always going to be in a lab. But you're telling us that through basic science, we are actually serving humanity when we connect the dots. And you beautifully showed that with your example of the insulin delivery material. That's amazing. And that's a shout out. We need more basic scientists who can harness nature, learn from it, and then implement it for humanity.
Yes.
So can you share more about so after you went to the university, you did your undergrad, and then you went to grad school. What happened after that? How did you then become a scientist?
I have wonderful professors, and this is something that I think is very important. When you're young, right, you will notice that there's some very wonderful mentors. They either adopt you or you should go after them and seek their advice, okay, because they are so much more experienced and experts in their field. So I have my professor, John Bobet, who guided me through my 4 years of undergraduate study because I did research with him. And I also have many wonderful professors in chemical engineering, chemistry at Cooper Union, where I did my undergraduate studies. So when I was graduating, they all told me, you got to go and do a PhD. And they really highly recommended Princeton University. And so there I go. I took what they said seriously. They told me you need a PhD as a passport to do research at the highest level. So I did that. And at Princeton, I have my PhD advisor, Professor Jay Benziger, and many wonderful professors in the department. They were very supportive of me when I was doing my PhD there, did my research and studies there, and then I got a AT&T Bell Labs scholarship. And Bell Labs is one of the top-notch industrial lab, but they did such fundamental work and actually have Nobel Prize winning work coming from that lab. So I went to that lab in the summer, and I learned a lot of things from Murray Hill Bell Labs, and that also gave me ideas about how research can be done, which can be really shaped by the individual professor in many ways. Like you can see that a lot of people pursue very basic research, but my angle is I like to start with basic research, but I always like to address a problem. As an engineer, we would like to address a problem and try to tackle the problem in the hope that can make an impact to society.
Well, could you share with us, in your journey to becoming a full-fledged scientist and professor at MIT, on that way, any like challenging story, something that happened that really affected you and how you dealt with it?
There are many challenges. So when you do research, right, there are many days when the experiments might not work as expected. And that's when I will take a walk. So for example, in Princeton, it's a beautiful campus. I will just take a walk and put things in perspective, why we are there and what we are doing. So this thing about why we are there and what we are doing was something that was always in the back of my mind. My parents are not religious, but they wanted us to learn about religion. So they sent us to Sunday school. So we grew up as, me and my sibling, we grew up as Christians. But I remember even from young, in primary school, I will be looking at the sky and wondering what is the purpose in life? Why am I here? Right? So it was many years later that about 22 years ago, so in my early 30s, that I converted to Islam. So this meaning of life, purpose in life is something that is very important. If we know and we can find the answer, then it makes all the work that we're doing really meaningful as part of our worship. And this is something that I'm excited about. So when days that it's not working so well, it's okay. You know, you take evolution, you pray. After that, it's another page, right? So we can refresh our mood very easily. And this is really important because there are many obstacles in life, not just in work, but many things can happen that require, I would say, a lot more wisdom than we human beings sometimes are able to have. So we ask for divine help.
Wow, that's amazing. What a wonderful story. You also mentioned mentors, and you mentioned either they seek you out or you go seek them out. So
Yes.
could you share maybe your experience or advice on how do you find the right mentor? And if they're not reaching out to you, how do you get the courage to reach out to them?
Yes, I was very fortunate because when I was in the US, I found that in the high school, in university, in graduate school, and even when I become a professor at MIT, there were always people who come up and become my mentors. At MIT, actually, I was assigned two wonderful gentlemen to be my mentors. And you can see that one thing that was throughout my career is that there are people who are out there who are actually really, they see something in you and they wanted to help you, and they're sincere, and I'm very grateful for their help. And they don't have to be of the same gender. So for example, I had only one professor in my undergraduate school as a who is a woman. Okay, in graduate school at Princeton, my whole department was male, right? So it was very difficult. And when I go to MIT, I was the first Asian American woman professor in the School of Engineering, right? There was another Asian American female professor, and she was in the sciences. So you can see that there's really no real role models who are women to look up to. But the men, some of the men, I would say that they are really wonderful people who want to see that if they can help and nurture the next generation. So they will give you and provide you with advice. If you don't have somebody who come to you and help you, you can always seek their help and tell them what your dreams and ambition is. And they can help you and guide you to do what you want to do. And that's really important because I find very often young people just ask their peers, or maybe they can turn to their seniors. Their seniors could be helpful, but your peers might not know very much more than you, right? And some people don't like to talk to their parents. Actually, parents are a wonderful source of support and advice. Okay, so you seek out your own mentors. They could be your teachers, they could be your professors. Have conversation with them beyond just the professional things, right? Because they can guide you in many areas. After all, they have been through all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. What you just said about mentors, not just for your career and your work, but even your
Yes.
personal life,
Yes.
is so important. And wow, we would love to hear more about your journey being the first female at MIT in your field, or first Asian American, and then at Princeton also being the only woman in your department. So let's take a break, and we'll come back to learn more about Jackie's journey to becoming a scientist. So stay tuned.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Find out how to use an awkward silence to help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Right here, baby. Look. Uma.
Something more than a birthday is happening here. Once you can see it, you can help. The sooner you recognize the signs of autism, the sooner you can make a lifetime of difference for your child. Start by answering a few simple questions at screenforautism.org.
All right, we're back. We have with us today Professor Jackie Ying, who is the director of the Nano Bio Lab at 8-Star Research Institute in Singapore. So Jackie, tell us more about your actual science. What is it that you do? And how did you start on that these research projects, or this field of nanotechnology, and how that impacts our everyday life?
Sure. So what we are doing here is to develop a nanotechnology toolbox. And that toolbox should allow us to basically control the size of the nanomaterials and use different composition. It could be organic or inorganic materials. And we want to manipulate also their morphology and their surface structure. So we do all this so that we have a big toolbox, and then we can pick and choose what kind of nanostructure that we want to tackle a problem. So for example, we might want to develop a material for battery application. So battery is so important, right? So all of you know, if you carry around your phone, your mobile phone, and then if the battery dies, suddenly you feel you're cut off from the rest of the world. So battery capacity is key. How long we can charge and use a battery for, right? And how often we need to charge it and how fast we can charge it, right? So this has to do with the material we use in the battery. So for example, we have developed a nanosheet material. It's a layer structure. It allows the electrons to be charged much faster. And what we want to do is also store more of it so that we can make the best use of the material, and then we can make the battery thinner and lighter. So this kind of things basically is about choosing the right nanostructure and using the right composition. And sometimes we have to functionalize the surface to achieve what we want. Right? So you can see when we reach into our nano toolbox, we're doing a number of different things. I mentioned nanomedicine. That's for tackling things like diabetes. We also use it to tackle things like cancer. We want the drug, chemotherapeutic, which is very potent but has horrible side effects, to be targeted towards the cancerous tumor only and not create all the side effects, right? So then we will reach out into the nano toolbox to find something that is a material that is, for example, we developed something that's based on green tea. Right? So green tea is again one of Allah's creation in nature. It has a catechin that has anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory effects. So we make use of that to wrap the chemotherapeutic so that it has a synergism between the green tea and the drug, the therapeutic, so that we can have much stronger effect at killing the tumor cells, but at the same time targeting the tumor by using a nanoparticle. Okay, so that you have minimal side effects.
Well, so my question to you: how did you get inspired about, for example, exploring green tea? You know, what caught your attention and got you to use it? You know, we drink it, and then but you're thinking on a totally different level. So tell us more about that.
Yes, we have a wonderful team at the Nanobio Lab and the Institute of Bioengineering Nanotechnology, which I founded in Singapore. We recruited many people from different countries, not just in the West, but also in different parts of Asia. And we have a team of people working on this system. They were from Japan, from Korea, from Indonesia, etc. In particular, for Japanese and Korean scientists that were working with me, they were very interested in this green tea material. And we know that in Japan and China and Korea, people really love drinking green tea, right? And it has all these wonderful health benefits. Okay, but you have to drink a lot, of course. So we decided to look at these wonderful benefits, again, from nature, right? When we say bio-inspire or nature-inspire, actually, to be honest, we are looking at Allah's creation. So it has all these benefits. We thought, why don't we make use of that instead of making something that's purely synthetic, like a polymer, right? A polymer has sometimes toxicity effects, sometimes an issue degrading inside the body. So obviously they're not the best carrier for drug delivery. We look at this green tea and we decided to turn it into a micellar nanocomplex so that we can wrap different kinds of chemotherapeutics in there. And from there, we created this nanoparticle that's so tiny that they will go in circulation inside the body for extended period of time. And then they will end up in the leaky vasculatures that are associated with the tumors. So there it gives us the passive targeting effect. So when we deliver it, we are delivering not only the chemotherapeutics, we are actually also delivering this catechin from green tea that itself has a therapeutic effect.
Wow, that's amazing. So two things here. So you're doing exactly what a former Nobel Prize winner said. It's seeing what everybody sees, but thinking what no one has thought by turning green tea into something very useful. But could you give us some kind of perspective about when you talk about nanotechnology and nano biotechnology and nanomolecules? What is the size or dimension we're talking about, just so that our listeners can appreciate what you're doing?
Yes. So nanotechnology is much, much smaller than something like hair, which is on the micron level, right? So 1 micron is basically 1,000 nanometers. And 1,000 microns made up 1 millimeter, right? So you can imagine nano is really, really tiny. Why we are working in the nano scale is because there are many things in nature uses nanometer scale structures as building blocks. So naturally, we want to make use and harness that length scale in order to achieve what we want to do. So I told you that our tumor is made up of blood vessels that have little gaps in them. So we call them leaky vasculature. So, but you can imagine this little gaps, right? Is very, very tiny. So in order to squeezing it into it and deliver the drugs, right, we need the material to be nanometer scale. Anything that's bigger than a few hundred nanometers also will get picked up by our macrophage, our body's immune system. The macrophage will pick it up, So it has to be tiny and it has to be small in order to escape our immune system and deliver the payload and then squeeze into the tumor to deliver it right there to minimize the side effect.
Wow, that's amazing. The size, right? The dimensions that you're
Yes.
working with, things you cannot see with your own eyes, but through microscopes and through calculations and theories and computer simulations, probably you can actually project, visualize, and start testing. So, speaking of testing, do you test these nanotechnology tools on cells or on animals, or both, before you give them to humans?
We have to test them on cells. We call those in vitro studies. And then we test them on small animals, for example, mice or rats. And then we go progressively to the larger animals. And then finally, we go into clinical trial, which will involve humans. So it's a very long process for this whole process, and it requires a lot of efforts. And so this is also somewhere some of the challenges are, because you can imagine sometimes it works in animals, right, and it has also no toxicity effect, but then when it goes to human, it might not work and it has toxicity effect. And that's really not surprising, because after all, we are created so differently from the animals, right? So this is why a lot of things take a long time for doing research, and it's also what inspires us to do another area of research, which we call in vitro toxicology. We are trying to use human cells instead of animals to try to predict whether certain drugs will have toxicity effect in human, by using human cells instead of small animals. This obviously has to be done in a very controlled manner. We develop microfluidic systems so that we can have the cells grown in such a way that they basically mimic human organs. For example, kidney cells, they come together very nicely so that they form little organoids. Then we can predict when we use it to see whether it will have nephrotoxicity effect, whether the drug that we introduce, when they kill these cells, that means that very likely they will be toxic to the kidney. And this type of work we do, again, you can see what we are trying to do is really understand what the medical issue, what is the biology issue, right? And then learn from nature and then design something that hopefully will allow us to do something more effectively.
Wow, yeah, and then this is interesting how one discovery in one field influences and informs and helps solve problems in another field,
Yes.
and that's the interdisciplinarity that you mentioned earlier. So when things don't work with you, right? What wakes you up in the morning, right, to keep on going? Because, like you said, research takes a long time, and you need to believe in that and your gut feeling. But what makes Jackie wake up every morning and keep on going?
Okay. um, it is something that I do that I feel I can make an impact, I can make a difference. So I try to do my best. And also, I have a wonderful team of people, both back in the States at MIT and also in Singapore at Nanobio Lab. And I also have great collaborators. They are in different institutes, and some of them are in the hospitals. So we work together. The common goal, I think, is people want to make a difference. There are a lot of people who do scientific research. They're after different things. They're after, for example, sometimes publications. They want to get inventions. They want to make a name for themselves. I understand all this, but when you get to a certain age, what really is the most important to me is I hope that my work can actually make an impact. I don't want my work to just remain as a publication, which is nice to have, but really it's just there. And if somebody don't really make use of it, I feel that the work doesn't really reach its full potential. And of course, we also want to publish to generate knowledge so that other people can take on and continue from there. So there are many different things that one do. And what I hope to do is I will hope to make a translational impact. And I also hope that some of our work get successfully commercialized, which means that it can reach the market and can be put in somebody's laptop as a battery, or can be administered to the patient as a new medicine.
That's amazing. And I think that's a very important lesson. And it's about finding your passion, right? I mean, you found your passion, and that's what it keeps you going. It's not because you want to be famous, or like you said, it's about money, but it's about following that passion that keeps you going. And that's why I think everyone should look and find their passion, and then they're happier and they do better, and they raise the level and quality of the field that they're working in. That's so amazing. And you feel it's contagious. Your passion and love for what you do is very contagious. You're tinkering. So that toolkit that you mentioned, I think that's amazing. So this toolkit, this is available for anyone from any field. If they have a question, they go read about your toolkit and access those tools, whether they're software or instructions on how to develop certain materials, so they could test their own hypotheses. So could you give us an example of a collaborator or somebody who came to you and wanted to work with you to utilize your toolkit?
Yes. So sometimes people will come to me and say, can you help us with this problem? So, for example, clinician might have something they have in mind. Can you help us with this? And then we will think about how to apply it. And sometimes we are looking at the field and then thinking about how we can make something better. And usually, to tackle an important problem involves a great deal of complexity. It means that you might need to do it from an interdisciplinary approach, right? So what we are really good at is we can assemble a team within our lab who comes from different background, different expertise, and sometimes we reach out to external collaborators who might have certain expertise so that we can come together and tackle a complex problem together. So this is something that's very important. Science is very collaborative, and because it is so complex. And that's also what is the beauty. And the passion for this is certainly very important, because you will find this complex problem sometimes also mean that you struggle with finding out a good solution after a very long time. So a good mentor will try to chop up the problem into smaller pieces so that we can find it more easy to tackle, and not make the youngest scientists feel frustrated that they are not getting somewhere. But what is really important is that you yourself find interest and passion in what you do. Many of you are probably still exploring that. There are certain things I want to really mention, because we are each created individually and specially, okay? And there are things that, for example, I have a daughter, and you look at her and she's blessed with certain gifts, and she has a unique personality and character, right? That has very little to do sometimes with our genetic makeup as parents, okay? So each of you have very special gifts from Allah. So you need to figure out what that is, okay? And some things will come much more naturally for you than others. And you then have a certain inclination to it. You should follow that. And as parents, and I hope there are some parents around, watch what your child likes to do and what they're good at. Because, for example, I remember, which I did tell this story about my daughter. She was less than 2 years old. She would like to draw things, right? At that age, people like to draw. She drew a birthday cake on a table. But what is unusual about her picture is that she draw a front view and the top view.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so this is like an engineering drawing. I will look at that and go, okay, she's an engineer. Yeah, so she's a natural engineer. She like to make things, like to do things. So she had me work with her on many experiments at home, with things in the kitchen, etc. So that's how, you nurture your child's interest. Don't force them to do something that you want them to be or do, because they are blessed with certain gifts. Try to observe that and nurture it from young so that they have a love and passion for it. Well, of course, try to have a very good balance of different areas of study, because as you can see, when we grow older, we find that we need to tap on all these different skills that we have.
Well, that's amazing advice for parents and for teenagers to reflect upon what they like and what they want. Let's take a break and come back to learn more about your scientific career and its impact on humanity.
A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Right here, baby. Look. Uma.
Something more than a birthday is happening here. Once you can see it, you can help. The sooner you recognize the signs of autism, the sooner you can make a lifetime of difference for your child. Start by answering a few simple questions at screenforautism.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we have with us Professor Jackie Ying, who is the director of the Research Institute Nanobiolab at the A-Star Institute in Singapore. So, Jackie, could you tell us, you mentioned about the low number of women as scientists at the different universities that you've worked in, whether it's Princeton or MIT. So could you elaborate more about that, why you think that is the case, and how can we do more to encourage more women to pursue a career in STEM or whatever their passion is, if it's related to science?
Yeah, I was undergraduate students in the 80s, and that's a long time ago. And so the ratio of male to female is 8-1 in my undergraduate studies, right? So that's obviously very different now. although women is still minority at places at MIT for certain majors, almost half are women. But that doesn't reflect the national average in the US. Women is still very much a minority in areas like engineering. This is maybe historically there is a reason. Maybe a lot of people were not very encouraged by their teachers. Maybe women think some of the subjects and math and science are dry. But what it is at the end of the day, you have to find your passion about what you want to do, right? Of course, as a minority, sometimes you have to struggle more and work a lot harder. I always felt that I had to do really quite twice as much work as a man. It is also something that's challenging for women because they have a biological clock, right? So they have to basically be the one who bear the kids and be the one who has a big part in raising the child. So they have to learn to multitask. And I think that is actually a huge advantage associated with most women. I'm not saying the men are not good at it, but a lot of women, they just have to be good at it. Maybe that's why they're really good at it. You learn to do different things and focus on it when you're doing it. This basically is part of how we work as as female professionals, right? And men don't quite understand it sometimes. I still find that sometimes you have to let people try to make people understand it. I find that in the West, quite a number of the men understand it. In the East, amazingly, I think a lot of mindset is still not there. Okay. And it's difficult. It's more difficult for the woman to struggle and be a leader. So, for example, if a man is ambitious, etc., that's looked upon as a positive trait, right? But for women, it becomes something that could be unattractive for some strange reason. So there's all these gender biases that you have to work with, and but at the end of the day, you have to be yourself. Do what you feel is comfortable. And there are things that you absolutely have to do. You have to be affirmative about what you want to achieve. Okay. Do not let other people push you around, and you have to focus on what is best for you. And I hope you find the mentors who will guide you, and most importantly, be an advocate. If there are people who can be advocate for you, your life will become much easier. And listen to good advices instead of be stubborn about certain things. Okay, there are many things we are very stubborn with. I often tell my staff and students, oh, I know you're stubborn, and I am too, because we can't be scientists. We are not stubborn in a sense, because if we don't persevere, we would have given up long time ago. We would not be doing what we do. But there are some things require some thinking through, require more wisdom. So that comes with sometimes with age and experience. But if you're more open-minded, you will find that maybe life will be a bit more easier for you. But even then, life is full of tests. That's why we know, right? This is why we always know from our religion. Just move on with it and then try your best with it. I would say that when I look back now, and then I see there's a lot more women and a lot of Asian female scientists in the field, and I'm really excited about that. I also noticed when I travel through Middle East, there are some really outstanding young people who are pursuing science, and they're female. I would say they're more female than male scientists in a way that that are very promising, and that makes me very, very hopeful. Okay, so all we need is more people get to a certain level and be recognized, right? Because it's again a very male-dominated society in Middle East. But I see the young women have lots of energy and passion, and that will make a huge difference. So I think things will be very different in another 10 or 20 years.
I hope so. And I think it's having those role models. I mean, you're a role model, right? So I think we need to showcase these role models so that the young generation, both women and men, see you, and it becomes normal for women to pursue their passion and follow their dreams wherever they are. That's amazing. You need to write your story, Jackie. We need a book by you telling your story, so we can cite you and talk about you. So tell me more about your ambitions in terms of your research. How do you envision your projects in your lab and that of your students and your staff impacting humanity? Like what's your most recent project that you feel comfortable to share?
Okay, sure. We do a lot of work that involves also in diagnostics, right? And recently we've been looking at diagnostics for COVID. And so this area is something that we're really passionate about, to be able to accurately diagnose the disease and very rapidly and hopefully inexpensively can really make a huge impact in pandemic. And so this is an area that we've been working on. And I think some of this technology, people think of it as, it's existing technology, but there's always a spin to it. How do we make things faster, better, less expensive, so that it will benefit not only the developed world, but also the developing world is key. And this is an area that I think is really worthwhile looking into.
That's amazing. So I want to ask you a more question about your thought process, how you think about things. So when the pandemic hit and we were all stuck at home, in a way paralyzed because we lockdowns and all that, what was Jackie thinking in dealing with this, Jackie the scientist and Jackie the person?
To be honest, we are thinking, how can we get to the lab and do something that can make a difference? So me and my lab members, as many of them as possible, move into the diagnostic area so that we have a good reason to go back to the lab. And also, most importantly, we want to be able to go back to the lab so that we can do something to make a difference. So many things were done in the lab so that this rapid diagnostic kit that we are working on can make a difference. The company that we spun off has also been working on things. So for example, they have commercialized very accurate multiplex RT-PCR assays. And now they are looking at the rapid test kits, which we believe is more accurate than what's in the market, right? So people in the company and in our lab are busy working. And then other people who are doing other areas of research, for example, they might be working in biomaterials for drug delivery. They can't be doing that at home, right? So what they did is they looked at, okay, can they use that technology to deliver nutrients to the plants? And they can do these experiments at home. So you can imagine, in the end, we got actually a very fruitful 2 years, despite the fact that there's a small number of people can go to lab. Other people were doing things at home with all kinds of experiments and reading up about what they can do as soon as they can get back to the lab. So I would say that it makes a big difference when you have a lab of people who really are excited about work and can think about what to do. The thing about agri-tech, right? Sometimes people think about it, what does nanotechnology do with agri-tech? What we are doing is we are making a coating around the seeds and we're wrapping the nutrients in there. For example, this could be fertilizers. It could be in the form of a bacteria, which is a very good fertilizer, natural fertilizer. And then you can imagine we wrap this coating, a nano coating of nutrients around the seeds, right? It's like cuddling the baby, the seed, and then allowing the seed to germinate much faster and much better. And this was very important thing because during the pandemic, our supply for food, which a lot of it comes from our neighboring countries, was cut off. So it's a panic because it's a small country, right? We don't have much land for agri-tech. We have to find a very efficient way to grow vegetables even, right? So this is what we were doing. We're always thinking about, okay, how can our technology benefit society and tackle the existing problem, not only the pandemic, but all the other issues associated with the pandemic.
Well, that's so amazing. The pandemic was terrible, and it impacted all the world in many negative ways. But there's a silver lining, and that's what you're showing us. That
Yeah.
because of it, you were able to think, you and your team, outside the box and develop new methodologies that you would have never thought of if there wasn't a pandemic. So this is like seeing the half cup full instead of half cup empty, right? That's
Yes, yes,
amazing. And
indeed. So in
and
Chinese, we have the
uh-huh.
word for crisis. But the word for crisis, 危机, the first part of the word means danger. The second word is actually opportunity, right? In Arabic, we also have all these root words, correct? But in Chinese, same thing. So this means, okay, in every danger, crisis, there is an opportunity. So make good use of the opportunity. It is something that we always learn in our religion, right? We are given a test. Let's see how we can pass the test, and not only pass the test, but with wonderful grades.
No, that's an amazing lesson. And one other thing you also mentioned is how you've taken your basic science in the lab to the level of commercialization in industry, because many
Yes.
people are interested in industry. And yes, through science, you can connect those dots again to industry and commercialization. But so how do you do that? You after you've done with the basic science and tested everything, and then you partner. So this is another kind of collaboration, interdisciplinary learning about business and industry, or you just hand it over to them and they continue the process?
Okay, we have a lot of spin-offs since the days of MIT. I mentioned to you about the insulin delivery system. So when the PhD student graduated from MIT, we spin off a company called Smart Cells. And then the Smart Cells basically go from the small animal work that we did at MIT to large animal studies, and then to preclinical trials. So that took about 7-8 years. And when you hit preclinical trials, the large pharmaceutical companies become very excited. Right? In the end, two companies want to bid for buying out the company, and Merck doubled the bid and he bought it out for 500 million US dollars in milestone payment. So that's an example of how a technology that can be that can really tackle a major problem can be very, very appealing. But that took many years of research, right? It took about 5 years of PhD for the student, and then another 7-8 years in the company to get to that point, right? And so we are also doing a lot of spin-offs in Singapore. One of them basically take the technology from our lab, license the technology, and then try to develop different kinds of diagnostics. And this is something that we hope has a good commercial potential. We have been basically done very good sales and marketing of the technology, and that it can make an impact, especially in COVID. But in every different things, we can think of what to do, right? For example, in Singapore, we have a shortage of eggs because the eggs usually come from Malaysia, and the border was locked until very recently. Okay, so we have to import eggs from many different countries. Okay, and then they need to test the eggs for certain bacteria. So you want to be able to test it very quickly. So we were working with the Singapore Food Agency to do a lot of these different kinds of studies in the hope that this kind of technologies from our lab can really make a difference.
Well, so what you're showing us through your stories and sharing your experience, how to work together. Everybody counts. We need all the stakeholders. You need,
Yes.
and scientists are kind of core to that, advising, consulting, helping different sectors of society to work together to create a better life for the individuals, for humanity in general. So this is amazing. I'm so inspired. I want to go back and do a PhD all over again. And you're helping, foster that and pique that curiosity that is so fundamental to who we are as humans. So thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story, sharing all the advice to both parents and children. And I'm sure a lot of kids are excited about science, and they'll be knocking your door and wanting to be one of your mentees and students going forward in the future. So thank you very much. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you And for the audience, thank you for staying with us. And we look forward for you to join us in our next episode when we meet with another professor from MIT. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right,
Hi.
we're done? Good. Oh, that was good.